In a highly connected world, there are still a few patches of land so thoroughly hazardous that modern governments use naval warships to treat any attempt at landing as a criminal offense. The danger in forcing these quarantines comes in two distinct forms. On some islands, it is a biological threat, an environment dominated by lethal, highly evolved predators. On others, it is anthropological, the presence of an aggressively isolated human society willing to defend its borders with lethal force. This raises a fascinating legal and ethical problem. When dealing with ancient, lethal microcosms that reject all contact, absolute legal isolation has become the only tool left to manage them. This image of an Indian Coast Guard patrol shows the scale of the enforcement, yet outsiders continue to attempt breaches. In March 2025, a 24-year-old named Mikhailo Polyov tracked sea conditions and tides to illegally land on North Sentinel Island, where he left behind a few coconuts and a can of Diet Coke. Polyov's landing followed the 2018 mission of John Allen Chow. Chow paid local fishermen to smuggle him through the exclusion zone under the cover of darkness, making multiple attempts to reach the indigenous sentinelese people before he was ultimately shot with arrows and killed on the beach. Halfway across the world in Brazil, the trespassers have a different motive. Smugglers, known as biopirates, frequently navigate the cliffs of Snake Island under the cover of night, hunting for rare vipers they can sell for $30,000 on the international black market. Authorities have responded with severe legal penalties. Polyov was swiftly arrested, placed in a 14-day judicial custody, and charged under the Foreigners Act, facing a potential 5-year prison sentence. These modern intrusions prove the necessity of the current hands-off, eyes-on policy. The exclusion zones are a reactive measure against the persistent curiosity of the outside world. To understand why a place like Snake Island requires naval protection, we have to look at this map of the Brazilian coast. Around 11,000 years ago, rising sea levels flooded the land bridge connecting Ilha de Queimada Grande to the mainland, stranding a population of snakes on a tiny, rocky outpost. Cut off from the continent, the stranded snakes quickly consumed all available ground prey. To survive, they slithered into the canopy to hunt birds. Because a bitten bird can fly away before dying, the snakes faced intense evolutionary pressure to kill their meals instantly. The result is the golden lancehead viper. Found only on this island, it evolved a fast-acting hemotoxic venom that is 3 to 5 times more powerful than its mainland relatives, powerful enough to melt human flesh almost instantly. The island's name, Queimada Grande, stems from early attempts to burn the forest down just to clear the snakes. The plantation effort failed, and the lethal residents remained. This aerial view of North Sentinel Island reveals a very different kind of barrier. Shielded by treacherous coral reefs, it is home to a self-sufficient hunter-gatherer society that has lived here for an estimated 60,000 years. Their hostility toward outsiders has a specific, documented origin. In 1880, British naval officer Maurice Vidal Portman landed on North Sentinel with a large armed party. He captured an elderly couple and 4 children, dragging them back to Port Blair to study. The consequences were cataclysmic. Lacking immunity to outside pathogens, the elderly couple died almost immediately. The British then sent the 4 children back to the island, carrying gifts, and undoubtedly carrying those same foreign diseases back to their tribe. The arrows fired at low-flying helicopters today are a sophisticated defense mechanism, a behavior anchored in a historical memory of what happens when outsiders arrive. To prevent history from repeating itself, the 1956 Protection of Aboriginal Tribes Regulation establishes a strict exclusion zone extending 5 nautical miles out from North Sentinel, actively monitored by the Indian Navy and Coast Guard. Brazil followed a similar strategy for Snake Island. After several lighthouse keepers died after encountering vipers, the Brazilian Navy fully automated the island's lighthouse in the 1920s, removing the final permanent human presence. India's enforcement creates a unique legal paradox. If a trespasser is killed by the tribe, the Indian government will not prosecute the sentinelese. By refusing to enforce its own criminal code on the island, the state effectively recognizes the tribe's de facto sovereignty. These legal barriers act as a firewall against accidental genocide. For an uncontacted population, the bacteria on a tourist's skin or a simple common cold can trigger a total demographic collapse. In an era where every inch of the Earth is mapped by satellites, these islands represent a deliberate sovereign void. It takes an immense amount of military power to actively abdicate control, but the highest form of protection a state can offer these environments is the legal promise to leave them completely alone. These islands remain illegal to visit because they are the last frontiers where nature and culture are allowed to exist entirely on their own terms.